Hello and welcome everybody to the webinar about the new JFrog platform. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, you have the Q&A panel that you can type your questions in, and we will have time to answer some of those in the end. All the widget below can be minimized or maximized or closed, and you can play with it the way you like. And the recording will be made available very soon for you. And obviously you're on mute, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. That's why you have the Q&A panel. Thank you for joining to learn about the JFrog platform, and let's talk about what is it. Let's talk about what is the JFrog platform. And the official term is it's the industry's first hybrid end-to-end universal DevOps platform. This term should raise some questions. Why we think it's the industry first, what we mean by hybrid, what we mean by end-to-end, what we mean by universal, a lot of questions. And during today's webinar, I hope to answer all of them. Before we dive into where we are now, it's telling to take a look at the history of JFrog and the history of our product and how we actually get here. And the interesting part about the JFrog product roadmap is that it's a combination of our own vision and listening to our customers. It's some ideas that we have and might not be popular in the industry when we come with them, but then become kind of a standard de facto, and also a lot of features and a lot of requests that we have from our customers. Right, so here are some of those quotes that we kind of learned from. I spend almost 50% of my time copy-pasting CI script and babysitting and maintaining our DevOps toolchain. Or I wish I could stop having to switch between different logins and screens. Or I want to benefit from new features, but why is your upgrade process so inconsistent and hard to configure? Turnouts code I was deploying for the past year had 52 high security vulnerabilities. As if CI wasn't cumbersome enough, CI for Kubernetes apps in hell, and all this kind of stuff. So we feel the pain, and we work towards fixing this pain back from the start, 2006, when we actually started to speak about artifact management, and people weren't even understand what we are talking about, why someone needs to manage artifacts, and aren't they just kind of a result of compiling the code and just running with it instead of, all you care about is source code. Why do you even need managing artifacts? After Yoav Landman and Fred Simon wrote the first version of Artifactory in 2006, we learned that there is a very high demand and people actually do care about, and this is how they decided to found a company around it, and this is how JFrog founded 2008, 2009. We came with the hybrid solution, with the first commercial offer, and also the ability to run Artifactory both on-prem or on the cloud. And then 2012, second product, JFrog Bintray, that's a universal distribution for open source, and this is where we actually started to learn that there is this challenge of distributing artifacts is not less important than the challenge of managing artifacts. 2013, new version of Artifactory, which migrated from the emphasis on some highlighted stack to actually being universal, and instead of being the artifact management for Java or for NuGet or for NPM, actually become a universal binary management when every binary type is a first-class citizen, and we support a few dozens of types of artifacts now as first-class citizens on JFrog Artifactory and the JFrog platform. First HA version that supports the enterprise and their needs, and very powerful replication that supports any kind of topology and network configuration, caching and scaling, etc. And then the first version of JFrog X-Ray, the security vulnerability scanning, but actually much more than that. X-Ray is much more than a security solution. It's actually it's a tool to realize the artifacts that we have in Artifactory and then do any kind of stuff with it. And then in 2018, learning from our experience with JFrog Bintray, an enterprise distribution tool that allows you to distribute the bundles that you create in Artifactory to the edge devices and to any kind of edge nodes. Another open source tool, Go Center this time, a central repository for Go packages, and then with acquisition of Shippable, what become now JFrog pipelines, declarative and modern continuous integration and continuous delivery solution for integrating both cloud native containers and legacy apps. JFrog Container Registry and free tool based on Artifactory to manage Docker images and Helm packages. And then this is what we are talking about today, the end-to-end DevOps pipeline, security and software distribution tool. And we'll also release the Command Center, which is a central repository for C++ packages. So that's kind of the history of what we did over the last, what it is, 14 years. And today we are talking about the JFrog platform. So I mentioned a couple of terms like hybrid and universal. So that's now it's time to actually pay the bills. When we talk about universal, we talk about actually three different aspects. So we talk about user experience across the DevOps toolchain with shared visibility, security, and control across all your pipelines. We talk about security as first-class citizen built in, and we talk about automatic pipelines from code to production with advanced capabilities designed for the cloud-native apps. And this is the JFrog pipelines, which is a part of the entire deal. We run an expensive beta program for, I think, at least half a year, if not more, working with different beta partners worldwide very, very closely, and actually run some real-world scenario testing. And that was through all the industry verticals, including finance, insurance, manufacturing, food industry, technology, all of them. And the feedback was very, very positive. And here's a quote: "The new JFrog platform really eases the administration of the product." And this is obviously great to hear. And the idea was to release something that was already tested and proven to be successful. And we are talking about the features of the unified experience. First of all, it's the new UI. It's bringing all the JFrog tools together. So now we have one UI for all the JFrog services. All services are tightly integrated, building dashboards for services topology, trends, and much more. fine-grained visibility into entire delivery process. Next big highlight is the improved search. So now we can search not only for artifacts, but actually across all the services and objects. It includes obviously artifacts, but also builds, release bundles, security and compliance object as well, and advanced search options like by name, obviously, but also by properties, by CVE, by time, and etc., etc. Unified data and services. So you already know probably our obsession with metadata. So now we have everything. The metadata is now integrated end to end. Efficient administration, and that means that now we have different type of installations, silent and interactive. We have different. We have better logging. We have standardized file system format. Configuration files are standardized with the preset configs and everything else. So cloud native installation, as usual, we support a lot of installation types, including every cloud native way to install it. Configuration is now consolidated. You have one place to configure everything JFrog. There are no more different configs. Security is now a first-class citizen in the JFrog platform, obviously, and it goes also to the configuration part. So role-based authorization and authentication control across the board. The roles are synchronized now, the permissions are synchronized now, and it obviously makes it much easier to work with. Secrets management, integration with HashiCorp Vault, and obviously the part of X-Ray is now integrated all through the JFrog platform. So you can see the X-Ray data everywhere. Wherever you have artifacts, you have the X-Ray data related to it. And obviously integration with JFrog pipelines, so your pipelines can make decisions based on security information, failing the builds, and this kind of stuff. Talking about pipelines, so as I mentioned, our new product, JFrog Pipelines, is now integrated in JFrog platform as well, and the JFrog Pipelines is made for Kubernetes and cloud native. Obviously, if you do this kind of development, you'll find it much more easy and useful to use than other legacy CI servers. It's declarative. We have a lot of native steps, so there is no need to write code. It's YAML based, so it is a declarative configuration. And the security, as I already mentioned, RBAC and secrets come from Vault. RBAC is the same with the platform, but also extra events like blocking the promotions. Centralized management and real-time visibility across all port lines. You have the screen that you can see the big picture when pipeline is running, and then zoom into what you really care about. And concept of pipelines, when you actually have a lot of builds and pipelines that comprise a bigger build and a bigger pipeline. Obviously, universal as everything JFrog means that we have integrations with everywhere, including your CI and CD solutions. And that means that instead of rewriting everything, you can actually integrate your existing pieces of build and deployment as the steps in JFrog pipeline. And again, as everything JFrog, it is enterprise scale, supports HA, supports big scales, a lot of parallel builds and all this kind of stuff. So you don't have the Jenkins sprawl, if you wish. It's actually much clearer, and you do it in one centralized place. And then obviously talking about enterprise scale caching and parallelizing to accelerate your pipelines. So that's kind of the list of the features. But now, how the platform looks like? What do you get when you install the JFrog platform? So this is the big picture, and you can see here whatever is in green is the part of it. What we don't have is version control, and then you use GitHub, you use GitLab, you use Bitbucket, whatever makes sense. Once you start building, you have your pipelines to build your source into artifacts, and those artifacts actually come into Artifactory, and then in Artifactory you start promoting your artifact through quality gates. And this is using pipelines. They are doing the promotion. One of the steps will be security and compliance issues that are found and managed by JFrog X-Ray. There are obviously other tests, but the security and compliance is taken care of, so you can actually also do those steps in JFrog pipelines. And then once you've done, you go into distribution, and distribution can be deployment to your production servers or distribution to JFrog Edge servers. And this is where the release and the deploy states happen, again orchestrated by JFrog Platform. So just a little bit of description of each and every piece. So Artifactory is the artifact solution management, and it provides a caching of third-party artifacts and the target for deployment of your own artifacts. And of course, it supports all kind of binaries, container images, multi-site replication, high availability, scaling, etc., etc. X-Ray, that's the deep recursive scanning tool. It again scans every type of artifact, including container images, but not only. And in the end of the day, if this type can be recursively scanned and we can go further and find other packages inside it, this is what X-Ray does. Once we do that, we plug this information into security databases, including public like CVS and NVC, but also VulnDB, the most comprehensive vulnerability intelligence database in the world. It's a proprietary database that we have access to in order to check your artifacts with. And then based on whatever happens, we have integrations with your stack to perform the right steps. Notifications, blocking the build, failing the build, blocking the downloads of artifacts, etc., etc. Pipelines, as we said, continuous integration and continuous delivery tool, cloud native, with security building, X-Ray integration, and the concept of pipeline of pipelines. So declarative, and again, enterprise scale, distribution, fast and secure distribution of verified multi-repository release bundles. What it means is that after your build was successful and you promoted the artifact through all the quality gates, and those artifacts now are ready to be released, they're bundled together into bundles, and then they are distributed to JFrog Edge servers or to any other type of Edge server. And in the end of the day, you have JFrog Mission Control, which is a kind of a high-level view tool to monitor and control the entire platform. And in terms of hybrid, as I already mentioned, you can consume it in every way possible. You can have it on-prem, you can have it on the cloud, you can have it as a service from every major cloud provider, Google Cloud, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and all that. In terms of how it is installed and run, so you can see here that you can have HA all across the board. You can have highly available instances of Artifactory, highly available instances of pipelines, of X-ray, of mission control, of distribution, and in the end of the day, you have a load balancer that manages all this HA. Obviously, everything is scriptable. Everything is available through REST API and JFrog command line interface, JFrog CLI, and the build nodes which the pipelines uses, they are also available on whatever build node you need for your own builds. So what it provides you is end-to-end DevOps solution that you can use to build your pipelines upon it and use one tool end-to-end to integrate with all of them. Unified services and metadata. Now you don't have all those separate products to configure and work with. A hybrid, as I mentioned, you can select whether you want to run it on-prem, in the cloud, or as a service. And the beautiful part of it that you can integrate any part of them in any way you like. So you can have multiple instances, some of them on cloud, some of them on-prem, some of them as SaaS, and all of them will work together. And then you can have them integrated across the systems and the tools that you are working with. So at the end of the day, you have a better experience, your developers are more efficient, your administrators are more efficient, and you have security built in both through the tools themselves and integration with JFrog X-ray. Everything is automatable as it should be, and you have a single pane of glass, a single place to work with everything JFrog. So with that, enough slides, and let's dive into a demo, and let me show you how it actually looks and what you can do with it. So I'm going to log in here to our unified JFrog platform. And here you can see the dashboard of everything that is installed. You can see here that the number of services that are installed on every side. So you can see that in main JFrog platform, we have four services installed, and we can take a look of what they are and what what's going on with it. So you can see here that different types of services and their status. So Artifactory, X-ray, distribution, and mission control are all installed in the main JFrog platform site, and all the services are online. And here we have another site in which we have only one service, and that will be our Artifactory Edge, right? That's for distribution. So this is kind of a big picture. That's the mission control. You also have here trends, which in the beginning of the machine learning solution that we will eventually have built into JFrog platform. Those are early days, but still you can already see some of the useful graphs. You can obviously see the storage that is allocated and how it is used. You can see it by type. So you can see here stuff like, I want to see a Docker, I want to see NPM, I want to see NuGet, I want to see how much space every type of packages takes, and other information. For example, the security scanning. You can see here the coverage, how many builds are covered, how many repositories are covered by our security scanning. you can see the success rates of replication, which is not configured, but you got the idea. So if you look here on the left side, you can see the unified platform actually in one menu. You can see the mission control here as a dashboard. You can see the Artifactory as an item, distribution, pipelines, and security and compliance, and that's JFrog X-Ray. Before we go there, let me show you how administration is unified together. So you can see here how the repositories are configured in the same place where everything else, and you can see here unified configuration for all of it. So if we can see here also the services that have been installed, and that's more of a per server configuration, but whatever can be unified into a single configuration model is unified. So for example, proxies, obviously there is no reason for us to configure proxy for each and every tool when we are talking about the unified platform, and that's exactly how it's done. The same with permissions. So now we have a single permission model for all our components. So you can see here how resources actually have everything. Resources now are repositories and builds and release bundles and deployment destination and pipeline sources. All of them are now together. This is the unified administration that is obviously very, very useful. Repositories is the way we configure repositories in Artifactory, and of course you can see all the repositories types here that you can pick and choose which package type you actually support. Going back to the main menu. Next thing I wanted to show you is the search. So you can see here what can be searched, and you can see here the packages, artifacts, builds, release bundles, and security compliance. Any of them can be searched, and based on the type of the search, you can actually filter and select what exactly do you want to search. So this is a security and compliance search, so you can search vulnerability by name, or by CVE, or by license, by severity, or by whatever makes sense. So you can see here, for example, if I want to search for something, I will find the correct packages here. And if I search for artifacts, again, here the different types of searching by artifacts. You can see here, you can search by properties, by checksums, by name, obviously, etc., etc., and the same with packages and everything else. So with packages, I can search by type, and then by name, which repositories they are, and also by checksum. So this is the new powerful search that searches for everything, and the browsers are also a little bit different. The first and kind of the most important browser now is the package browser. So you can see here all the packages. Again, we can say I want only see let's say Docker images, and then when I search for Docker images, here are the 3 Docker images that I have with a lot of versions and each and every one of them, and then the status of X-ray scanning. So you can see, for example, pipeline app demo have 21 different versions, and they are scanned with X-ray. So you can see here the versions, and then we can obviously dive deeper into each and every version, and we see the X-ray status right here. As I mentioned, integration with X-ray is really first class. So you can see here how we dive into it, and immediately by version get into the builds that actually created this version. So you can see here that a lot of builds actually created the same version because the builds didn't change, they just run. And from here, we can go and dive deeper into the build browser. Before we do that, we can actually see X-ray data with this version. So you can see here that we have 175 security security issues. You can see that we have 175 security issues of different severity, but only one of them actually triggers violation, because I will show you how the policies are configured. It turns out that for this build specifically, we don't care much for different security vulnerabilities, but we definitely don't want this build to have an MIT license. This is what creates a violation. That's kind of a weird setup, obviously. You can think about the severity issues, security issues, especially of the high severity, and there are a lot of them, should generate a violation, but that's exactly the control that you have. And as I mentioned, the powerful the powerful thing in this X-ray is that it's a recursive scanning. So you can see here an example how we managed to find a security vulnerability in Java dependency that is a dependency of our proprietary backend that actually no one knows about, and it's not in any database. But since we know how Java dependencies work, we were able to find and mark this vulnerability, and then mark our component as vulnerable all the way to the Docker layer that is a part of, and the Docker image that is a part of. Right, so you can see how the recursive scanning works. It's true for security and for licenses as well. So we know, again, from the databases, which license is it, and you can see here the sources, for example, right? So we know sources JFrog and local file. It means that we know about this license from our databases, but also actually this artifact actually includes a license file that we can rely on. Obviously we can now configure the policies of working with those licenses. And talking about the policies, here they are. So we can configure policies, and if you remember, this build triggered a violation based on the fact that it has an MIT license. That's the policy of that triggered this violation. So it's ban MIT licenses, and you can see here the rule. The rule is actually we want to ban licenses, and that will be MIT and all MIT alikes. And then when it happens, we want to generate violation. That's what we saw in build, and then this is pretty much all. But other types of actions on policies, other types of rules, we can see them here. So here's an example of security policy, and 3 rules that comprise this policy: the high risk, in which we do want to do a bunch of stuff, generate violation, notify the recipients, and notify the deployer. But we can also obviously do more. We can trigger a webhook, and that basically means we can go ahead and integrate with any tool that we like. Here's an example of a Slack webhook, but it can be like whatever, Jira, ServiceNow, whatever works for you. And we can block the downloads, which will prevent downloading of this artifact from Artifactory by any tool or any way, and block release bundle distribution. We can disallow distribution of any release bundle that has this artifact, and then fail the build, and that's integration with pipelines, but also other CI tools that can query X-ray and ask if this build should be failed or not. So that's obviously very, very powerful as well. So those are the policies, and then we apply those policies on resources, on repositories, on builds, or on bundles, and just by attaching those policies that we created to them, and then we end up with what we saw. So now let's take another view. Let's look at the builds, and here we can see the same pipeline app demo, which all the builds that were run, and since those builds are watched, we can see that X-ray status that we actually watched this build and generated a violation for it. Now you know why. That's because the MIT license, but also because of the security violations as well, right? And we can select if we want to ignore all those or we want to take care of them. Builds is another very powerful construct that you might be familiar from Artifactory. We actually gather all the metadata from our build, and we know what we created and what we used as a dependency. We can gather all the security, all the environment variables, and we can compare the builds against each other. I want to compare build number 29 with build number 27 and see the new artifacts or changed artifacts or unchanged artifacts that were created. And also the build is where you will see all the pipeline history of this artifact, how it went from one stage to another inside pipelines. And talking about pipelines, this is where you can see the pipelines that either successful or failed, and clicking on those pipelines will actually take you to the big picture of this pipeline by itself. So you can see here how it actually looks, and you can see the steps that this pipeline actually took. And here the interesting part is that you can see how different builds are integrated together. So we have a Docker app which actually dependent on existing on the backend and the front end, and some additional files that will be the Docker file, obviously. And once we build it and we push it to Artifactory, the next integration steps going through the build info, going through the existence of build information in Artifactory and the information about it. And the next promotion step will be X-ray scan, and here you can see how X-ray scan actually failed the build. This is the watch that we set up and say fail the build if there are security vulnerabilities or license issues, and then we actually skip the promotion part. And this is why in the build browser that we saw earlier there are no promotion registered, because we actually skip the promotion because X-ray failed. And obviously you can see the details here about every step, so you can just see the logs and see how the X-ray scan generated a bunch of alerts. Those are our vulnerabilities, and in the end of the day, that's like 180 of them. And this is where you can see that issues found during X-ray build scan, and this is why the build failed. And obviously you can see other integrations here in action. So here is, for example, native integration with Docker. So you can see here that the Docker push concept is a declarative concept in JFrog pipelines, so you don't need to write any code. You can just configure it, and it actually works. So this is our pipelines. You can see the example of a successful pipeline, the Docker release pipeline, and the interesting part here is that the release pipeline the bundle actually based on the information from Artifactory. Again, the bundle should exist by then, and then we sign it, and then we use it, and then we distribute it using the distribution part. And here is the distribution part. You can see how the distributions here were successfully distributed, and you can take a look and see what actually happens. So you can see how the bundles are created, and then also what happened to the distribution itself based to the artifacts, which is our content of the bundle, which artifacts are part of it, which builds were a part of it, and if we have all this information as a JSON file that we can work on, we can attach release notes to this distribution, and then we can track it, how it actually went from our main site to our edge node, that is the one that you saw in the dashboard. X-ray data is obviously right here, so you can see again all the same vulnerabilities, and obviously if we selected blocking the distribution, this distribution would actually fail because we have a lot of vulnerabilities right here. And you can also see the Artifactory query language expression of the same bundle. So every set of artifacts in Artifactory can be described in Artifactory query language, and this is an example. So this bundle is described as find all the artifacts from the pipeline app demo build number 10 in a Docker per local and create a bundle out of it. And that's exactly what happened. You can see here that all the results of pipeline app demo number 10, the 13 artifacts, are actually part of this bundle. So this is how everything comes together. So you can see how all the building blocks of your DevOps pipeline, from the second you access the source code and build it with JFrog pipelines, all the way to when you distribute it to the edge nodes and do with them whatever needs to be done, are taken care of in a unified way inside JFrog Platform. So with that, that's the end of the demo. Let's get back to the slides. Let's take some questions. So here's one. To use the how the licensing works. Is the unified platform a different product? So unified platform is what you're gonna get if you download any tool of JFrog now. So even if you download Artifactory open source version, or if you download the JFrog container registry, you will always get the same UI, the same unified platform experience. The features will be available or won't be available based on the license and the product that you use. Obviously, for example, if you downloaded the JFrog container registry, most of the functionality won't be available. You won't have pipelines, you won't have distribution, and the number of packages that you are able to use will be limited. But in terms of the experience of working with the tool, it will always be the same tool. The installation will be the same, the UI will be the same, the configuration will be the same. It will always be the same experience. That's hence unified experience. And different subscription levels will enable different part of the UI. So in the end of the day, you will be able to do what you need to do and pay only for what you use. Question about pipelines: it's only available part of the unified platform. No, pipelines will be available for any cloud installation of the unified platform. For on-prem, it is a part of the full JFrog platform with Enterprise Plus license. Another question, new customer getting ready to deploy Artifactory. Should we stick with Artifactory version 6, or should we install Artifactory version 7? And Artifactory version 7 is actually the platform. We are very confident in the quality of the JFrog platform. Again, thanks for our beta program and a controlled layout rollout that we did for the next couple of months. So we would definitely recommend starting with the unified platform, starting with Artifactory 7. And remember that we are here to help. If you have any problems, we have a support team, and we have solution engineering teams that can help you if you have any problem with that.